And tonight on the Daily Wrap, Rand Paul thinks Republican hawks are to blame for the growth of ISIS. Meanwhile, Chris Christie speaks out against Paul over the NSA spying program. Rick Santorum announces he is running for president. But does he have what it takes in a very competitive and crowded field? And finally, Rick hits the streets of New York City for another undercover investigation you won't want to miss. This is the Daily Wrap, live from New York City. And welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Joe Concha, joined by Sirius XM radio host, Forbes.com columnist, and now man on the street interviewer.
Man on the street, and I am a man on the street.
Yes, he is. Usually a man in the bar. That is Rick Unger. To his right, Philly attorney and America's pundit. She is Heather Hansen. And finally, he's the assistant online editor for Commentary Magazine. Noah Rothman joins us again to have some fun, no doubt. Okay, let's go to the Daily Download. And we begin tonight with the Iraqi fight to take back Ramadi from ISIS and the international blame game on this major setback against the terror army. Today, the Iraqi military, led by Shiite militia, advanced to the outskirts of Ramadi. Just a few days ago, Obama Defense Secretary Ash Carter ruffled some feathers in the Iraqi government when he said Ramadi fell because the Iraqi military didn't have the will to fight. Vice President Biden now attempting to smooth things over with the Iraqi Prime Minister, telling him the U.S. appreciates what he called, quote, the enormous sacrifice and bravery of Iraqi forces, unquote. And speaking of the blame game, Kentucky Senator and 2016 hopeful Rand Paul is pointing his finger at fellow Republicans for the rise of ISIS.
ISIS exists and grew stronger because of the hawks in our party who gave arms indiscriminately, and most of those arms were snatched up by ISIS. These hawks also wanted to bomb Assad, which would have made ISIS's job even easier. They created these people.
Okay, let's bring in the Executive Vice President for the Center of Security Policy, Jim Hansen. Jim also served in the U.S. Army Special Forces. Jim, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
So, Jim, I know a lot of Republicans are having a big problem with this. Did hawks in the party play a role in the rise of ISIS?
I don't think that's a fair, accurate, or even bright statement by Rand Paul. He might want to stick to his libertarian, specialties and deal with the Ed Snowden incident. The bottom line is, whoever was giving arms to people that ISIS got them, it was approved by everybody in the government, from the Obama administration through the Bush administration, and blaming it on Republican hawks is a cop-out and kind of foolish.
How come we never hear about a mission accomplished moment in terms of the rise of ISIS when it comes to President Obama or even former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton? In other words, when the decision was made to pull troops out of Iraq, that obviously created a vacuum, and things were relatively calm before that. So how can you go all the way back to the decision in 2003 to go to war when, even though it wasn't, the security afterwards wasn't what we would call exemplary, the surge did correct things where things were relatively calm? So how could Paul, if he expects to win, the nomination, but how can he even make that argument, as you said, in an intelligent fashion when clearly the vacuum was created at 2011 when those troops began to be pulled out?
Well, he's pandering. I mean, it's pure politics. If there's someone to listen to on national security and people think it's Rand Paul, I would question their judgment. The bottom line is, you laid it out perfectly. We won the war in Iraq. We beat al-Qaeda in Iraq. We shut down the insurgency. We helped seat a government that represented all of the people of Iraq. And then President Obama decided that he could just end the war, and he lost the peace. We packed our bags. We left. We had no influence, and the bad guys, being ISIS, rolled back in, and the other bad guys, being Iran, rolled back in. Not a mission accomplished there to hang a banner on.
Yeah, it's Rick Unger. I actually just had a question I was going to ask, but I got to respond to what you two guys just said because I found it somewhat shocking. First of all, there would be no ISIS, I suspect, today. I mean, I actually take your point about the vacuum created, but let's remember who the commanders of ISIS are, by and large, and they're the very same people that we fired from the Iraqi army when we first went in there. So that's point number one. Point number two, saying that the Shia government that we installed represents all of the Iraqis, that's a bit of a stretch. Now, all that said, I do want to point out something and ask your opinion about what Rand Paul said this morning. Did you find it odd, because I know that I did, that on the one hand he was complaining that all these arms were given to the people who wanted to take out Assad. He complained that we wanted to drop a bomb on Assad, and then he later in the show, minutes later, says, I agree we need to take out Assad. How does he expect to do that if we don't arm somebody to do it?
I think I pointed out before, I don't take much national security advice from Rand Paul. He's incoherent on the topic, as you just pointed out. So if you wanted to take out Assad, you had to do something. It wasn't Republican hawks who were arming those rebels in Syria. It was Obama and Hillary Clinton. We had an arms running operation taking weapons from Libya and sending them by boat into Syria to these so-called vetted moderate rebels.
And do you know where those weapons were coming from, by the way?
They were coming from others that we had supplied to Libyan rebels.
Thank you very much. And where were they passing through?
They were passing through any number of intermediaries.
How about a little town called Benghazi?
True that. That is absolutely correct.
Thank you.
But back to your point about whether or not the folks running ISIS now are all former Baathists. There are some former Baathists involved in that. There are also an awful lot of Islamist jihadists, and the Baathists and them don't really get along all that well. So they may have helped start ISIS, but they got pushed out pretty quickly once the throat cutters got their Islamist Sharia law game on. So I think right now what you're dealing with is the caliphate, and those guys are pure black flag jihadis.
And that'll help be the last word there. Jim Hansen, VP for the Center for Security Policy. Thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
It's fun.
Meanwhile, former State Department spokesman Marie Harf is actually getting a promotion. She's now Secretary of State, I should say, John Kerry's Senior Advisor for Strategic Communications. Ms. Harf will be advising Kerry on the Iran nuclear negotiations. For those of you who own one, better get that bomb shelter ready and restocked while you can. Anyway, you may remember that Harf, just a few months ago, was sharply criticized by Republicans when she talked to MSNBC's Chris Matthews about the administration's ISIS strategy.
We cannot win this war by killing them. We cannot kill our way out of this war. We need, in the longer term, medium and longer term, to go after the root causes that leads people to join these groups, whether it's lack of opportunity for jobs.
And you'll never believe this, but the news of her promotion also drew some backlash on the Twitter. Like this tweet, World War III coming right up, or we may have another one. My God, incompetence, cluelessness, paltry qualifications equals promotion. Banana Republican mentality. Oh boy. So, our favorite spokesman gets a promotion. It should also be noted that she'll still be keeping her prior position at Kappa Alpha Theta as Rush Chairman and Mixer Coordinator. Rick, should we be talking about a possible 2024 run for Marie Harf?
First of all, I know I know it's fun to pick on Marie, and it makes great television to say, oh my God, she's going to be advising John Kerry the negotiations. No, she's not. She's advising on communications, and I think we would all probably strongly suspect she was kicked upstairs. Yeah, I think that's the term for it. She's not going to have anything to do with the bomb negotiations.
I would take a promotion up. That's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think she wanted.
Oh, yeah,
I think
true.
she wanted to keep the job. I think John Kirby, the person who got the job over her, actually, she wanted the job that he had before this, which was the spokesperson for the Department of Defense, and he got that job as well. But I don't think it's fair to say that she doesn't have the qualifications. She got her MA at UVA in Foreign Affairs, I believe. She worked for the CIA as one of their main analysts.
Does
for
she
a period
invoke
of
confidence
time.
in you during press conferences?
She
at the
does
State
not, but
Department?
I think that part of that is that she presents in a way that is, you know, as you've often said, like a sorority girl, and that's something that,
I
you
like
know.
Heather standing up for Marie Harf.
No, but
Way to
I
go.
do. The thing is, the problem is that I think she's been given bad talking points, and that's consistent with what happens in this administration.
Noah?
Well, they're both campaign professionals. Her and Jennifer Psaki, who's also was for a State Department spokesperson who got kicked up, but she's now a very visible director of the White House communications team, and she still is, you know, the power of hashtag making dubious pronouncements. She was today on CNN, I believe, where she was discussing the administration's strategy for Iraq and noted that while they do have to make some changes, which is probably a deviation from message, that they're also still going to move forward with arming, equipping, and training the Iraqi army, which she also stood by Ash Carter's statement suggesting that they're completely incompetent. So to suggest that these people have a real grasp on their job as communications professionals is a dubious claim.
Okay, very good. Well, we wish Miss Harf luck. We're going to miss her, that's for sure. Rick Santorum is running for president, but does he have what it takes to cut through a crowded field? Keep it right there on Newsmax TV.
The last race, we changed the debate. This race, with your help and God's grace, we can change this nation. Join us! Join us!
Rick Santorum, he is back, and today the former Pennsylvania senator joined the ever-growing list of 2016 Republicans. He even took aim at President Obama, saying the White House isn't the place for on-the-job training. He vowed to defeat ISIS, get rid of Common Core, and protect the rights of the unborn. Mr. Unger, he won 11 states in 2012. That makes him second. John McCain finished second in 2000, got the nomination in 2008. Romney, second in 2008, got the nomination. Because Santorum finished second, he feels it's his time. Is it his time?
Big yawn on Santorum. It's sorry, man, it's not happening, Rick. Look, it's a very different field this time. He does not have the edge on the social issues that put him in contention in a few primaries last time around. He will not even make the top 10 Fox cutoff line for the debate.
Yeah, he's at 10 right now.
Yeah.
He won't
Right.
stay there.
And he won Iowa last time, but it was kind of interesting because he won, but we didn't know until like 3
Right.
weeks later or
Right.
something, and that
Right.
didn't help in terms of his momentum. Rick is exactly right in terms of he owned social issues last time because the contrast was Mitt Romney, who really didn't want to talk about that stuff. And now he's got to go against the Cruzes of the
Cruz,
world
yeah.
and so on. There's about 5 people that could be the other Santorum.
Right.
So
And-
what happens here?
Listen, I think he knows that. His speech today was focused on economics more than I've ever seen him focus on the economy before. So I think that he also knows that that's what the American public wants to hear about. But I just don't think that he has the background there or any sort of history of having anything to say there.
Noah, did you find it interesting that he actually came out in favor of the minimum wage? I did not see that coming.
Not at all. In 2012, he really characterized himself when he wasn't talking about social issues. He was focused on blue-collar economic issues, primarily protectionism, and with regards to the manufacturing base and building up the blue-collar worker in the disaffected areas of the urban environment that Republicans generally don't talk about. I'm actually kind of surprised that he's not performing as well as he was insofar as relating to the evangelical base of the Republican Party like he did in 2012. Mike Huckabee seems to be really taking that angle, but the two of them also share this Iowa victory. Mike Huckabee won in Iowa in 2008. So it really comes down to who gets the Bob Vander Plaats nod in Iowa, who's going to really secure the evangelical vote. And right now it looks like Mike Huckabee, but I don't think he's nearly as well equipped a politician as Santorum is.
I agree. I think if you're going between the two, you'd be better off choosing Santorum if you want to really win something. But I think Huckabee has it. I don't know why.
Neither of them are realistic choices. People know it. You would win nothing with either of them. I was not as surprised as you that he came out in support of the minimum wage. He's obviously made the choice that his only shot, his only lane is with low-earning, middle-class, blue-collar voters.
Yep.
And as much as Republicans and conservatives don't want to admit it, those people who vote Republican want the minimum wage. So it's not that surprising at all.
Well, we'll have to see. Other 2016 hopefuls talking today as well. Chris Christie taking aim at Senator Rand Paul and Mike Lee for opposing the efforts to renew the NSA's collection of Americans' phone records. The secret program revealed by Ed Snowden.
He's a criminal and he's hiding in Russia, and he's lecturing to us about the evils of authoritarian government while he lives under the protective umbrella of Vladimir Putin. That's who Mike Lee and Rand Paul are siding with Edward Snowden. There are other. Come on.
Go Cowboys. Christie says he used the Patriot Act to track down terrorists when he was a U.S. Attorney General in New Jersey. Heather, opinions don't fall neatly along party lines, do they?
No, they absolutely don't. And it's a good debate. It's a debate that we should be having. Do I think that it's going to be the end-all be-all in this election? Absolutely not. We've talked about this before. I don't think people care about it nearly as much as the politicians seem to think that we do. But I do think that it's a debate we need to have, and they need to get going on it so they have some sort of decision by June 1st.
No, do you think people don't really care about it that much because they really don't understand the issue, or they're just more concerned about economy, terrorism, social issues?
I just think it's a different environment than it was in 2013. This really did resonate strongly in 2013. I mean, when Rand Paul mounted his filibuster, as it were, kind of a faux filibuster, he was joined by a lot of figures who would have nothing to do with him today, including people like Marco Rubio, who is trying to position himself as the hawk in the foreign policy sector of the 2016 race. It's just the nature of the fact that in 2013 you didn't have the rise of ISIS, you didn't have the rise of lone wolf terrorists, you didn't have Russia cross-border invading and annexing territory in Europe, you didn't have China threatening the Sakhalin Island and the Spratly Islands. It's just a different threat matrix today than it was 2 years ago.
That's true. One quick question for you.
Yeah.
Does Chris Christie run?
Yeah, he's going to run. But, you know, there was something that I thought was much more interesting in that interview than the things we're talking about. The reason he said what he said was because Mike Lee took a shot at him.
Right.
And what you saw was Chris Christie, who cannot help but make it personal. And making it personal is not going to get it done for him.
Jersey guys tend to do that sometimes. Anyway, 2016 Republican Carly Fiorina continues her attacks on Hillary Clinton. Today, she questioned Clinton's track record.
In 2011, when she was Secretary of State, she said that Iraq was a free, stable, sovereign nation, and now we have a nation falling apart, Iranian influence growing, ISIS growing. It's true that she said that she could reset our relationship with Russia, and Vladimir Putin is on the march.
Now, Heather, she did that outside of Hillary Clinton event,
right,
and obviously drew some press. Does she have a point?
She absolutely does have a point. And the thing that is, like or dislike Carly, the thing that is great about her is she's answering these questions. She is answering the policy questions. She's answering them more specifically than any other candidate. And that is a real difference from what you see from Hillary Clinton.
All true, and she's doing more than that. If you're looking for a Republican candidate who's actually gaining ground through what they're doing, it's Carly Fiorina.
Is there evidence that she's gaining any ground? I agree she's running a very spirited campaign, but you have no choice but to run a spirited campaign in a field of 19 candidates.
True.
Democrats would really
but she's
benefit
making
from
headway.
like
you
that.
watch. I think you're going to see her numbers go up. I've been impressed with her, and I don't particularly care for her.
We have to create like the AP top 20 for college basketball and just have that up every night. She's moved from 16 to 14. It's only a matter of time before she gets a 3 seed. Anyway, Rick hit the streets of New York today to talk healthcare. This is the Daily Wrap. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to The Wrap. There's a growing debate boiling now about the role of nurse practitioners, nurses who perform many of the same functions as doctors. A New York Times article caught our attention. Doctoring without the doctor is the headline. 20 states now have laws in the books allowing nurse practitioners with advanced degrees to practice without a doctor's supervision. But groups like the American Medical Association oppose laws giving practitioners more autonomy. One doctor points out that nurses have just about 4% of the total clinical hours that doctors do when they start out. But nurse practitioners say their care is as good, if not better, than doctors. And they argue they're filling a void to treat the millions of patients who are now under Obamacare. Well, our own Rick Unger went undercover to find out what the masses think about nurse practitioners.
One of the big questions in medicine today is whether or not it's a good idea to replace physicians with nurse practitioners and physician assistants. We decided to find out how people would feel about this. Let's go see what they think. If you went to see the doctor because you weren't feeling well, and instead of getting to see the doctor, you ended up with a nurse practitioner, how would you feel about that?
Well, I would prefer to see the doctor. I believe that they know what's wrong with me more. I would think that they went to school for it, so I would hope that the doctor would see me and let me know if I'm going to be okay.
It depends on what the sickness was, I guess, but most nurses are pretty well educated and have been doing it for quite a long time. In my experience, they're usually pretty knowledgeable, so I wouldn't feel awful, again, depending on what the sickness would be.
What if I told you it would cost you a whole lot less money to see the nurse practitioner?
I would probably bite. I'd probably go for it.
I mean, I guess it would depend on why I'm at the doctor. So it might make me feel a little uncomfortable, but I feel like for the most part, I'd be fine with it. That would actually, I would like that better, I guess.
You'd like it better?
Less expensive, yeah.
I wouldn't like it.
Why not?
Because I have a doctor for a reason, so why is he not taking care of me?
Now, what if I told you that by seeing the nurse practitioner, your bill would be substantially less? It would cost you less.
That would be good. Like, if I knew that, I would probably be okay with it.
I'm okay with that.
Tell us why.
Economics. pure and simple. I do think that if we can drive care down to its lowest level, that there is a more efficient cost. Yeah.
From my experience, the doctors are usually better than the nurse practitioners. You feel more confident. They give you better answers, results. I don't think I'd care because with insurance, like, it doesn't cost you much anyway, so like how much less, it's not going to matter. I'd rather see someone I feel more confident in.
I would presume that the nurse practitioner was qualified to receive me in whatever capacity I was there, that the doctor approved that visit being structured in that fashion, and that if there were anything more serious to be reviewed or diagnosed, that the doctor would become involved.
There you have it. Some are for it, some are against it. But the one thing that it seems to come down to, if you vote in favor of more nurse practitioners, you like the idea that it might cost you less. So that's it for today. Man on the Street going back into the studio and the rest of the gang.
Dollars and cents, Rick. That's what it seemed to come down
You
to.
know, it was fascinating. That is, as soon as I would say to them, what if it cost a lot less? Then they would go, oh, well then.
Well, then the other thing that's important in the discussion is access. You know, you can often wait weeks to see a doctor, depending on, as they all said, what you're going in there for. But you can see a nurse practitioner the next day, and they can treat you, they can give you prescriptions, they can do diagnoses, they can look at tests, they can do almost anything a doctor can do.
That's absolutely right. And in rural areas where there is no doctor, or the doctor comes once a week or once a month, they are critically important. Listen, I've been a huge fan of this program, physician's assistants, nurse practitioners, for years. I think they are going to be a huge part, not only of the medical system, but of the medical solution.
Particularly in an aging population, though, where more and more people are going to need access to health care. And maybe the ER has a 3-4 hour wait, or as Rick said, they're in rural areas where you can't even get to a doctor.
Yeah, I couldn't help but notice that just about all the people that you spoke with were younger or in their early middle ages. Probably not people who are dealing with chronic ailments.
There were no old folks in the park, but
yeah,
you're right.
They're probably all at the doctor. And these are the individuals, these are the people who use doctors frequently and actually need them to identify and isolate problems early on before they become issues. If you're talking to somebody who's chronically ill, the cost-benefit analysis probably changes dramatically.
Well, I just point out, I'm one of those people, and I have been seeing a nurse practitioner for 11 years for a particular problem that I have. I've never even met the doctor I was sent to see. Wouldn't know her if I tripped over.
And studies show that the nurse practitioners do just as well. And in fact, if you're seeing someone over a period of years, you see the doctor more often. He might ask to see you more often, but the nurse practitioner gives you as good results. So I think it's the wave of the future, and depending on the specialty, it may be preferable.
You know, we're seeing a rise in, at least I do in New Jersey, urgent cares.
Yes.
They're kind of like
They're
hospitals.
great.
Yes.
They are great.
It's like the fast food for it. Obviously, that the care is of a high quality.
Yeah, and
but
you're in and out in no time.
That's the thing.
It's
the wait
fabulous.
times is what's hurting hospitals.
But it's different. And to Noah's point, urgent care is great unless you are chronically ill, in which case, and you do, whoever you're seeing, you want to build up a relationship with that person. If it's a nurse practitioner, that's great. If it's a doctor, even better. But I think that that's part of the problem as
For
well.
young people, it's the good enough model,
That's right.
Okay, just
Give
get me
them the
through whatever this
medication.
ailment I'm having, including what I'm having right now, but a discussion for another time. Anyway, how would you like to see the rich taxed at 90%? Bernie Sanders thinks it's a wonderful idea. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. Well, it's probably safe to say that 2016 Democratic hopeful Bernie Sanders isn't going to win many votes from the super rich. If he had his way, the self-described socialist said he'd bring back marginal tax rates back to where they were during the Eisenhower days.
When you think about 90%, you don't think that's obviously too high?
No. What I think is obscene, and what frightens me is, again, when you have the top 1/10 of 1% owning almost as much wealth as the bottom 90. Does anybody think that that is the kind of economy this country should have? We think it's moral.
Now, for those keeping score at home, that's a 90% tax rate. So how far will Mr. Sanders go with that proposal, Ms. Hansen?
He's a man of his word. He believes what he says. He's not just throwing it out there to make political points, and I don't think he's making a lot of political points. I think the majority of Americans would disagree with a 90% tax rate.
Yeah, I'm a dumb guy generally, and I'm just sitting on the couch, and I hear that, and I say, wait a minute, you're going to say I'm going to work, and then I only get to keep 10% of my pay?
That's not exact. I mean, first of all, I'll say, as my friends in the South would say, that dog ain't going to hunt. But that isn't exactly what he's saying. Remember, it's not 90% of your income, it's incremental.
Well, I know. I'm saying the way it's perceived at home.
Certain amount of money.
Sure, absolutely.
There was a time for many years that's how it was done in this country. I think once you make the change that we've made, you don't go back.
It was never at 90%.
So,
if Bernie Sanders thinks people are going to paid, if anybody thinks that anybody paid 88% of their income in taxes in the 1950s or at any point in this country, you're lunatics. Bernie Sanders is crazier than we give him credit for if he believes that's the truth, and that's saying quite a bit about our ability to underestimate.
But that was the rate.
That was the rate.
You're right. Nobody paid it.
But nobody paid it, and that's exactly what we're dealing with now. This is all flights of fancy. And again, political positioning in order to attract a very untethered to reality demographic on the left wing that is really genuinely attracted to pure socialism, the internationale kind of socialism.
Does it at least put pressure on Hillary Clinton to raise for the top 5%? I mean, at least, does it push her in any way, shape, or form, or does she just say,
Here's the thing.
silly old Bernie?
She's not going there. She's not going to go there.
She can pay all the lip service she wants to, and she probably will. But everybody on Wall Street isn't listening. No. They don't mind there's the former senator from New York who was a committed Wall Street advocate when she was in the Senate, going as far left as she needs to in the primary because they know she's going to be their women. They're women in the White House.
She doesn't have to go that far left. I promise you, Hillary Clinton is not going to be arguing.
She is.
You think she's going to go for a 90%?
She's been pushed as far to the left. If you blow on her to the left, she moves.
Do you think she's going to support a 90% incremental tax rate? Do you?
But No, but it will. It might change her, though. To Joe's point, it may make her think twice about exactly how she's going to address the issue. I mean, you saw that with Elizabeth Warren, and to Noah's point, she is moving left. She is far more left than her husband was.
What has she said that makes you think she's gone so far to the left you could blow her over?
She's repudiated every single one of Bill Clinton's achievements, from welfare reform to the 1994 tax.
What did she say that repudiated welfare reform? What has she even said about it?
She's addressed all of them. She's been every time she's asked about a Bill Clinton achievement.
She's only answered 11 questions.
And welfare reform is among them. But this isn't a question.
No,
this is
her policy.
Yes, this is our policy of addressing the structural poverty issues that were addressed in welfare reform are being exacerbated. For example, what we were talking about last time I was on this panel of addressing what you can buy and what you can't buy when you have an EBT card, when you have food stamps. That kind of social engineering is now frowned upon.
I'm just wondering where. I mean, I'm happy you've heard her even talk about it because I haven't heard her even mention it so far.
I haven't heard her defend one Bill Clinton accomplishment.
Well, she may not have defended it, but I can't remember her coming out against his policy on welfare. So I'm not quite sure. Just because she hasn't spoken to it yet doesn't mean she rejects it. That doesn't make any sense.
I'm under the impression that she has also come out against.
Where?
We know she's not left on amnesty.
Where?
You see what's happening here. We're all kind of speculating, well, not speculating, what she may say because she isn't speaking to anybody still.
She hasn't said it, so I'm not sure where you're coming down to the conclusion.
She has gone far left on amnesty, and she has on criminal justice reform. She's gone far left.
By the way, so have the Koch brothers. So everybody's come down that way on criminal justice reform. She's not going to have a problem there. But I got to tell you, I haven't seen her repudiate. She may think that way, I don't know, but if she'd answer some questions, maybe we would know. But she hasn't. I don't know where this policy is coming from.
So you can imagine that Hillary Clinton, when she's up against the wall, she's faced with a real liberal interviewer, or anybody, any interviewer for that matter.
Imagining's a far cry from this is her policy.
I can't cite vaguely remembering, but I can't cite it. But if you had welfare reform, the 1996 welfare reform bill to do over again, you were faced with the exact same Congress that you're faced with today, and you have to address the welfare reform program, would you have gone so far as you did? Would you have supported what your husband, the president, did in 1996?
Such an easy answer for her. Say I would absolutely support what my husband did. You know why? Because there's not anybody out there who remembers. You do. But you think the voting public remembers what her husband did?
It would be the first Bill Clinton achievement she's come out and defended aggressively.
What is she rejected? You keep saying that,
DOMA,
but you can't tell me.
1994 crime bill.
That's right,
amnesty.
Well, we've all rejected DOMA. Life moved on. That doesn't make you a wild leftist. I know a whole lot of conservatives who've agreed with doing away with DOMA.
I didn't say it did, but it most certainly says that Bill Clinton's achievements, Bill Clinton's presidency,
we gotta go.
We gotta go. Have to agree with Lincoln?
We're going to Potluck next. This is the Daily Wrap. Having some fun. And welcome back to Daily Wrap. It's Potluck time. This is a part of the show. We go around the table and share our favorite stories of the day. Noah Rothman, when I sent this idea over to you, you said I could talk about this all night. What is it and why?
Well, there are a few things that you can count on in life that are just sure things. Death, taxes, Halley's Comet, and a quadrennial fabricated draft effort to move Mike Bloomberg to run for the presidency. It happens every 4 years, and it's always semi-vague and somewhat veiled, sometimes overt. The 2008 Unity 08 draft movement was attempting to move Mike Bloomberg to the presidency. The online Americans Elect draft movement was a little bit more veiled, but was also thinly linked to Mike Bloomberg. All of these are efforts to get a centrist candidate, as which Mike Bloomberg purports to be, into the race to run for the White House from the middle to upend the American political system. This time around, it seems as though the draft effort to move the former mayor into a cross-slate presidential bid comes not from squishy centrists, but from the actual Democratic Party, or at least a Democratic partisan. In a USA Today op-ed, Newser founder Michael Wolff says that Bloomberg is the centrist that America needs, and he is going to keep the White House for the Democratic Party. And he's notably a centrist Democrat with some visions that are moderately liberal on social issues, and certainly moderately conservative on economic issues. But if this is going to appeal to Democrats, a progressive strain of Democrats that is prevalent today, I can't see how it's going to happen. The former New York City mayor has stated his unqualified support for Israel, has been very tough on crime when he ran the city, and he's also known as a preserver of the status quo on Wall Street, and all of these are going to be unappealing to Democrats, at least the modern brand of Democrats. So while the Mike Bloomberg trial balloon is almost certain to pop, you can bet on the fact that he's going to be asked again. There's something to be said for stability, and the quadrennial effort to make Mike Bloomberg run for the White House is certainly something that you can count on, and a stable mooring in your life in politics.
We talk about infotainment here sometimes, and candidates that we'd love to see win their nominations so they could run in the general. And boy, wouldn't you love to see, I know you would, Trump Bloomberg.
Trump.
How would that be?
First of all, I like almost everything Noah said, except not all centrists are squishy. We just want to make that clear. Some of us
Bloomberg
centrists,
supporters are certainly squishy.
I'm a supporter, and I'm not squishy. I like Bloomberg.
No, you're kind of squishy.
So I am not. Okay, now you're in trouble.
But
no, I
actually
though agree with everything else Noah said. It's never going to happen. Bloomberg is not going to run for president, certainly not as a Democrat.
I think he would love to be drafted.
So I think he would too, but it's just not going to happen. I think you're going to find, listen, there's a lot of time left to go. Anything can happen. If Hillary were to completely collapse, you could see a legitimate draft Bloomberg movement. I don't think, even in the face of Hillary collapsing, I think there would be other Democrats who would probably get to the front first.
The general,
I don't know. That's the
no,
problem.
I think
That's
he
the
would.
Problem.
He would, because you look at the general LinkedIn page, and you pointed them all out. Was tough on crime, not squishy.
Right.
He run Bloomberg, his company in his own name.
You call him squishy, but then you said all the hard-nosed things he did.
Oh, he's especially squishy on a variety of. Well, the centrist middle is squishy when it comes to.
Well, what's he?
Well, he's hard to categorize, right? I would imagine that he's basically a moderate Republican in the mold of New York City Republicans.
He ran as a Republican.
He ran as a Republican in 2001 in order to get elected.
Right.
He was an independent.
Right.
But as far as social issues, and even when it comes to fiscal issues, he's really indistinguishable from Hillary Clinton. That's the thing, is that Mike Bloomberg can position himself as Hillary Clinton can, which is they essentially hold all of the same positions, although Mike Bloomberg can't lie as effectively as Hillary Clinton can to Democrats and convince them that he doesn't hold all the positions that he actually does.
Further to the left.
So they're virtually identical.
It's
in
not that
sense.
she's convinced them, they just don't care.
Isn't he kind of like a Carly
Sanders
Fiorina, though, where he actually ran a company that was successful? You look at Bloomberg and you say, well, that's the model. It's one of the best companies
Carly
ever worked for.
blew it, but he didn't. He ran a brilliant company.
Correct. So you can't attack him on that.
No.
You can't attack him on crime. You said it during the break. Running New York is like running a state,
a country.
or even a country for that matter.
Yeah.
I think he would be a very
tough
formidable candidate to Hillary
He
Clinton.
used to call that. I don't know.
I'm not sure.
But he did used to
I'll guess
say
66 if I were to guess.
New York City is essentially.
And if you say that that's too old to be president, now we got a problem.
I'm sorry. You have your own army, a police force of 30,000 strong. You have your own State Department in the United Nations.
Yeah.
You essentially run a minor New York City.
I agree.
Or a minor country, rather.
I
than New York
agree.
City.
And Hillary's support is not something that I would characterize as strong. We saw it in
I
2008.
agree.
They jumped ship the minute that a Barack Obama came along.
It's
I
not
think it's
strong,
different.
but it's a little bit different. And again, unless she craters, which I'd be the first to acknowledge, that could happen.
Mm-hmm.
If she doesn't crater, there'd be no reason. If she does crater, the smart money would do exactly what Noah's suggesting, which is a draft Bloomberg model. I wonder if the money is that smart in the squishy center.
Well, when you're talking centrist candidates, isn't Jeb Bush the other centrist candidate?
He's not a centrist. I don't know why people call him that.
I think he is more so than
If you
you
look
think
at
he
his
is.
record, there's nothing centrist about it.
I got one more hypothetical. Clinton, Bloomberg vice presidential candidate.
I don't think he would take
he
it.
would never.
I don't think Bloomberg.
Right, because he's a manager and he's not going
Yeah,
to take orders
I
from
don't
anybody.
see it.
Okay, I could buy that. We're going to do your potluck tomorrow night if you
All
don't
right,
mind. That was
let's
too good
do
of a
it.
discussion to pass up. Anyway, when we come back, it's time for Yay or Nay. This is the Daily Wrap. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. It's time for Yay or Nay. First up, the Vatican has responded to Ireland's vote in favor of same-sex marriage last week, calling it a, quote, defeat for humanity. The Vatican's Secretary of State, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the highest official after the Pope, said, and we quote, "I was deeply saddened by the result. I think that you cannot just talk of a defeat for Christian principles, but of a defeat for humanity." Despite the Vatican's view on the issue, 62% of voters in Ireland are in favor of same-sex marriage. Are you surprised by the Vatican's response, Noah Rothman?
No, the Vatican is full of Catholics. Breaking news. They did exactly as they're expected to do, and I frankly don't find a whole lot of interest in what Ireland's voters vote on a referendum on a social matter. It really doesn't affect me personally, and frankly, I'm not really all that opposed to gay marriage, so I don't think that this is the earth-shattering development that the Vatican would like to portray it as, but that is their job, is to follow religious diktats.
Aren't you half Irish?
I am half Irish.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. We need to...
But I don't care what happens in Ireland.
The man is candid.
Don't pigeonhole me.
All right.
Don't stereotype.
There's no stereotype for
He's got
typecasting.
a potato problem, obviously. you know?
Yes. Heather.
I'm not the least bit surprised. I mean, as Noah said, this is what it's a true tenet of the religion, and it's the true belief, and they're entitled to have that.
Rick.
I couldn't agree more. And yeah, as Noah, I'm going to use the line. It's so good. Big shock. There's Catholics in the Vatican.
Okay. Breaking news banner almost came up there. The Volvo brand is and has been synonymous with safety, but its new self-driving vehicle, the Volvo X660, still has some bugs to work out. Take a look.
Cuidado, José, cuidado, José. Sí, aquí. Ahí no funciona. ¿Qué pasó? A ver. Sí.
See, apparently, the pedestrian detection functionality cost extra and somehow is optional. Let me repeat that again. There is a pedestrian detection functionality. It costs more money, so whoever was showcasing that decided, I'm not paying for that.
Spring for the upgrade.
Luckily, the man in the video, we're all laughing because we already know the result of this, came out of that harrowing experience with only bruises somehow. So, in the easiest yay or nay of all time, should it be mandatory to have the pedestrian detection system in all driverless cars, Noah?
Yeah, I'm gonna say yeah. Just based on that alone. So you might be tainting the jury here, but
True.
Yeah, but
Heather?
doesn't it look like the worst nightmares of when robots take over? It looked like the car was aiming for him.
Yeah.
Like it thought about it for a second.
This is just another example of government regulation. You're asking for more regulation.
Yes.
People can make their own decisions whether or not they want their driverless car to run over people.
Well, I know this. My
I
19-month-old
did that
kid
for
is
you.
not getting in
It
any of
works.
those,
It works.
as in ever. Anyway, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Celebrities and athletes need social media editors. San Francisco quarterback, that's for the 49ers, Colin Kaepernick, apologizing Tuesday for a distasteful post on both his Instagram and Twitter accounts referencing the severe flooding in Houston, Texas. The original post, which has been taken down, showed a car submerged in water with the caption, "I warned you, the hashtag 7 storms coming, hashtag Houston." 7, of course, is Kaepernick's number, and the storm he was referencing is when the 49ers play in Houston this coming August in a friggin' preseason game, no less. Kaepernick later tweeted an apology of some sorts that read, "No respect intended, prayers up." Finally issuing a better apology that read, "I'm so sorry about my insensitive post earlier today. I didn't fully understand how many people are struggling in Houston right now, and I feel horrible. My prayers are with everyone there." Yeah, because he really wrote that himself. Should the NFL take action against Kaepernick after this patently stupid tweet about the Houston Flood, yay or nay, Noah Rothman?
No, that's just obnoxious. I mean, it was a silly statement, and it was undone by whatever lawyer crafted that other tweet.
Right. Yes.
And but then no, there shouldn't be any action taken against him for saying something dumb.
Heather?
Absolutely not. I mean, they're already trying to parse out different punishments for different things, and this is something they should keep out of.
Quickly?
No, it's no.
I say suspend him for the game in Houston. It's only a preseason game, but it will send a message that words have consequences. Anyway, thank you for joining us, everybody. I'm Joe Concha, and thank you, panel, as well. Newsmax Prime with J.D. Hayworth. That's next. Thanks for joining.